Buon pomeriggio a tutti, spero che abbiate avuto modo di riposarvi un po', oltre che mangiare, bere e distrarvi. I lavori della Summer University sono molto intensi e molto qualificati, d'altronde si hanno pochi giorni a disposizione, ma spero siano stati finora di vostro apprezzamento. Io mi chiamo Luciano Vecchi, forse mi avete visto il giorno dell'apertura, sono membro del comitato scientifico della Summer School Renzo Imbeni, sono stato in passato deputato del Parlamento europeo ed ora svolgo il ruolo di membro dell'Assemblea legislativa regionale dell'Emilia Romagna. Oggi pomeriggio affronteremo un tema che è ovviamente di grandissimo interesse, è un tema strategico, non soltanto per le istituzioni dell'Unione Europea, ma direi complessivamente per gli equilibri e le dinamiche del mondo contemporaneo, che riguarda quel complesso sistema di obiettivi, di strumenti e di sfide che riguardano le relazioni esterne dell'Unione Europea. Comincio presentando i nostri ospiti, che sono qualificatissimi. Daremo la parola innanzitutto a Pierre Vimont. Pierre Vimont è il segretario generale esecutivo del servizio di azione esterna dell'Unione Europea, che è in qualche modo appunto il braccio operativo, ma anche, diciamo così, il luogo dove si sviluppano le competenze e le capacità di tradurre in azioni e politiche concrete le decisioni delle istituzioni europee e dei Paesi membri sull'insieme della politica estera, delle relazioni e delle iniziative dell'Unione Europea. Ringraziamo Pierre Vimont per essere con noi è una persona del curriculum di tutto rispetto, nel senso che come diplomatico francese ha sviluppato una carriera importante sia in incarichi strettamente diplomatici che al servizio dell'autorità politica, sempre concentrati nell'ambito dell'Europa e dell'Unione Europea. Avremo poi Carlos Carnero González, che è stato parlamentare europeo, è stato ambasciatore di Spagna con incarichi importanti rispetto all'Unione Europea, e avendo avuto l'onore e il piacere di lavorare assieme a lui per molti anni, sottolineo come non soltanto in Spagna ma anche in Europa continui ad essere non soltanto impegnato nel dibattito e nell'elaborazione politica, ma è un punto di riferimento appunto per quella sfida europeista in maniera particolare che riguarda la dimensione istituzionale e la dimensione internazionale dell'Unione Europea, di cui abbiamo bisogno. Avremo poi la professoressa Federica Bindi, che è attualmente direttore o direttrice, non so come bisogna dire, direttore va bene, dell'Istituto Italiano di Cultura a Bruxelles, ma che ha, nonostante la sua giovane età, un lungo e importante curriculum sulle questioni dell'Unione Europea e in maniera particolare sia dal punto di vista, diciamo, accademico che dal punto di vista politico. Ha, come dire, in più riprese lavorato al Ministero degli Esteri italiano e in particolare poi nel gabinetto di un ministro degli Esteri italiano qualche tempo fa, e gli chiederemo poi di concentrarsi particolarmente sul tema delle relazioni transatlantiche. Mi permetto di aggiungere un'unica cosa prima di dare la parola a Pierre Vimont, e che forse tra tutti i temi che si affrontano in questa Summer School, quello di oggi pomeriggio è il tema, o comunque uno dei temi, che sarebbe stato più a cuore e che stava più a cuore di Renzo Imbeni, a cui è dedicata questa Summer School. In maniera particolare, dato che ho avuto l'onore di lavorare con lui sia al Parlamento europeo che in circostanze precedenti e successive, in maniera particolare nell'ultima parte della sua esperienza da vicepresidente del Parlamento europeo, aveva avuto modo, partendo prima dalle vicende della ex Jugoslavia e poi in particolare da ultimo con la guerra in Iraq e nei conflitti in Medio Oriente, sviluppare anche una riflessione politica e intellettuale sulle sulla necessità imperiosa che l'Unione Europea si dotasse delle competenze, degli strumenti e della volontà politica necessaria per svolgere quel ruolo sulla scena internazionale che le compete, che deve o dovrebbe avere e che per lungo tempo non ho avuto o non ha avuto in maniera sufficiente. In realtà gli sviluppi istituzionali più importanti sono accaduti negli ultimi tempi con il Trattato di Lisbona ma questo ne parlerà appunto Pierre Vimont, che si fa un salto di qualità importante appunto nella strumentazione, nelle competenze dell'Unione per affrontare le sfide di politica estera. Ovviamente poi svilupperemo forse nel corso del dibattito un altro tema che è quello importante, è se ad oggi esista un'effettiva e unanime volontà politica tra i Paesi membri per fare in modo di utilizzare tutte le potenzialità degli strumenti di politica estera e relazioni internazionali. Io mi fermo qui, do la parola al dottor Vimont che, come dire, meglio di chiunque altro ci può testimoniare di come si è arrivati come dire, nel percorso storico ad attribuire finalmente competenze all'Unione in materia di politica estera e come sta strutturando il suo importante servizio di azione esterna dell'Unione Europea e ascolteremo poi da lui e poi potremo svilupparlo nel dibattito quali sono le problematiche e forse anche le difficoltà che emergono in maniera più evidente. Grazie.
Je vais parler comme ça. Thank you very much. I apologize because I don't speak Italian, so I will try to speak English. As we were saying, nobody's perfect, and I would love to speak Italian. I understand it more or less. I think I understood what you said, Dottore. I'm very happy to be here, and it's a great honor for me to be here to talk to all of you about this European External Action Service and what we more generally are trying to do in the foreign policy field. I hope I will not be either too over-optimistic or too pessimistic, because these are the two trends that we see more and more at the moment in Europe. And I try to give you, I hope, a lucid assessment of where we are at the moment in that field. I think that there are two ways of looking at foreign policy and more generally the external action of the European Union at the moment. We can do it either through the institutional and operational dimension, or we can try to do it looking more at the substance of foreign policy. Yeah. And I will try to go through these two dimensions, not taking too much of your time. But I think it is to give you as complete as possible image of where we are today. And I think for all of you, it could be useful to understand what we have tried to build up, where we are today, the successes we have gone through, not many, but a few, at least a little bit of them, and also the shortcomings that we're facing at the moment. And I think it's important to give you this global review. In order to understand where we are actually looking at the institutional and operational dimension, first of all, you have to understand what was the thinking behind the Lisbon Treaty and the changes that took place there. As it was just mentioned a few minutes ago about the war in ex-Yugoslavia or the Iraqi war afterwards, there was a general assessment inside the European Union, and that was very strongly felt at the time of the convention when there was the discussion on the constitutional treaty. There was a very strong held view by all the member states that there was something wrong with our foreign policy and more generally with our external action. that in our institution we hadn't found the right way to set up an institutional framework that would give to the European Union all the capacity to act in the best way possible, in the most efficient way possible on foreign policy. And the general assessment that was made was that one of the difficulties was that you had on one side the Commission dealing with regard to the external action with everything that was of its competence, namely trade, development assistance, and some other issues related to external action, energy, transport, migration. And that on the other side, as you know, there was the foreign policy in the more classical and diplomatic sense. On one side, you had a commissioner in charge of external action inside the Commission. On the other side, you had the High Representative, Javier Solana, to name him. He was the first one in that job and stayed there for 10 years, working with a small staff inside the Secretariat of the Council and trying to work also with the member states. And then you had a third partner that you have to be aware of, because sometimes we forget about him. It was the rotating presidency. Every 6 months, a new member state was coming in and was taking in charge the foreign policy sector. It was the rotating presidency which was chairing the Foreign Affairs Council, the defense ministers meeting, the development ministers meeting. So you had this trio, these three people being all the time together and trying to work as closely as possible together, but each one having his own competence. And the result of all this is that for our partners from outside of the European Union, this looked very much like a very heavy system, somewhat cumbersome, and sometimes quite difficult to understand. If I can give you one example, the EU had managed to be part of the Quartet, this group composed of the United States, Russia, the UN and the European Union, and that is trying as much as it can, but not very efficiently so far, to find a solution to the peace process in the Middle East. Now, you had the Secretary of State for the United States, the Foreign Affairs Minister for Russia, you had the Secretary General for the UN, and on the side of Europe, on behalf of Europe, you had three persons coming in who had, first of all, to agree among themselves who was going to speak and how they were going to, what kind of line they were going to take, because you had the rotating presidency, you had Javier Solana, and you had the Commissioner for External Action. As the convention went on, the idea came up, it had already been brought up by a few member states a few years ago, but the idea came up that maybe it would be better to change all this and to have to replace all these three personalities, only one single personality. And this is what the Lisbon Treaty did. It set up one single job for one single person, which was at the same time the High Representative, the Commissioner in charge of external action, and who was replacing the rotating presidency as such. This person, the first one to be appointed in a job, was Lady Ashton, and it's still Lady Ashton, Catherine Ashton, who is therefore a High Representative, Vice President of the Commission, and she chairs, because people tend to forget that, every month, the Foreign Affairs Council. She prepares it, she chairs it, she gives the follow-up to all this. And of course, in order to help her in her job, we decided to set up what is called the European External Action Service. Why is it named like that? Because nobody understands really what it's all about. In fact, it's a diplomatic service. It is a Ministry for Foreign Affairs, but some member states, mostly one, were not interested in having such a name because they thought it was looking too much like a sovereign state or a federal union, which they didn't agree with, and therefore they went for this impossible name that nobody understands, and they're very happy with that. But anyway, the truth and the reality of the job is that it is a European diplomatic service. You have to understand that this is the second point that sometimes is missed, is that at the same time as in Brussels we set up this European External Action Service, in all our delegations around the world, and we have today something like 140 delegations, which so far were only working for the Commission. There were Commission delegations, competent mostly for trade and development policy. We decided that they would be changed and they would become EU delegation, the European Union delegation, with a competence also on foreign policy. And therefore, for the High Representative, for Mrs. Ashton, she has now a network of 140, I shouldn't say so, but this is in fact what they are, embassies, European Union embassies that are working with her, and that are competent in foreign policy, just like in every other field of the external action of the European Union. And this has made a lot of difference, because suddenly in all the different foreign countries outside of the European Union, you now have a EU focal point. Our heads of delegation, whether they be in Washington, in Moscow, in Beijing, in New Delhi or elsewhere, are the coordinating focal point of the EU activities. All the other embassies from member states have accepted that, are working closely with them, and have accepted this idea that there should be somebody who coordinates for all of them, as long as we deal with the European Union action. And this is how we have been moving on since then. To give you a few figures so that you understand exactly where we are, the EES represents in the headquarters in Brussels something like 1,500 people. Outside, in the with our foreign partners, it's more or less 2,000 staff that are working there. But to complicate a little bit everything so that you get lost immediately, our EU delegations around the world are not only embodying these 2,000 people. You have 4,000 more people who are working there, belonging to the trade sector of the Commission, or to the development sector, or to the transport, energy, migration, justice, whatever it is. People who are working under the authority of the head of the delegation, of the EU delegation, but still totally linked to their services inside the Commission. And this is one of the problems we're facing and we have to deal with, is that they have a sort of dual capacity. They are part of the EU delegation, they work under the authority of the head of delegation, but at the same time they are directly responsible to the head of the service, the Directeur Général in the Commission that deals with those different competences. To be honest, this is not totally different from what exists in national diplomatic services. I come from the French diplomatic service. You have French ambassadors in every embassy. They have to deal also with this kind of reality, that the person that works for trade or for defense or for transport has a sort of dual capacity. He's under the chairmanship of the ambassador, but at the same time is a delegate from his own ministerial department. And they have to work like this in the best way possible. The main difference with the EU delegation is that in France now, for the last 30 or 40 years, ambassadors coming from the French Foreign Affairs Ministry have been fighting to make their authority accepted by the different people working under their authority. It has taken some time, but it's slowly moving in, and it is now more or less accepted. With regard to the EU delegation, this is totally new. It's brand new. We have been going through that only for 2 years, and of course we need to be more patient, and this will take time to be accepted. But this is what the system is at the moment. How have we been coping with this for the last 2 years? Because the EEAS was launched at the beginning of 2011, so we nearly have now 2 years being in office. I think on the daily work we have managed more or less all right. We are now chairing many of the working groups inside the Council in Brussels. The High Representative chairs the three different council, Foreign Affairs, Defense, Development. And I think that our partners in the member states are rather happy with the way things are going on. I think one of the great successes is certainly our EU delegations. They were very much being looked for, and people were really looking for a focal point in the different foreign countries, so that at last for many of our partners in third countries, they would have one face, one person to whom they could go if they wanted to deal with European Union affairs. And I think this has been a success because it has simplified as much as possible the system. For many of our partners in the different countries, for foreign ministers, if you talk to Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, if you talk to Hillary Clinton, if you talk to Antonio Patriota, the Brazilian foreign minister, they know who they have to talk to. They have Cathy Ashton, and they're very pleased with that because for them it makes life much more simple. And I think for this it's a good thing. I think also that we have managed in international negotiation to bring a new flavor, because now we try to simplify and to encompass and embody all we're trying to do into one political major framework. Of course, this has to be accepted by all the different stakeholders with whom we have to work. In other words, with the different partners in the institutional framework in Brussels, which means the Commission, the Member States, and the European Parliament. I think with the European Parliament, the whole question was about political accountability, and I think there we have tried to improve the situation as it existed before, and I think there is definitely an improvement there. Heads of delegation, at the moment when they are selected and appointed, go to the European Parliament to have an exchange of view with the members of the European Parliament, and then on a regular basis come back and have a sort of interaction with MEPs that I think the European Parliament values a lot. We do the same thing with the special representative, which are some sort of special envoy, ambassadors in mission, with whom we work also on a regular basis. The High Representative, Cathy Ashton, goes to the Parliament and makes regular reports, either in plenary session or in the Foreign Affairs Committee. And so we have a sort of constant flow of information going from us to the European Parliament and constant dialogue with them. Just to give you another example, a good illustration, we're having this week in Brussels the conference of our heads of delegation, what in many member states are called the Ambassadors' Conference. And we decided this year to have a whole afternoon with the European Parliament. The 140 heads of delegation were yesterday in the European Parliament. They had discussion with the President, Martin Schulz, with the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Elmar Brok, and it went very well, and I think it was very useful for everyone. Therefore, the European Parliament has become a sort of natural partner for the EES. With the Commission, it's a bit more complicated, I would say, because the Commission has resented or felt that the EEAS was a loss for them. You know, up to now, they had a managing department called the RELEX, which was dealing with foreign policy, and this RELEX has been part of the transfer from the Commission to this new EES. In a few words, the 1,000 and 1,500 staff that is working in Brussels is made more or less of 2/3 from the Commission, people coming from the Commission, and 1/3 coming from the Secretariat of the Council. And also we have now diplomats from member states who are slowly moving in, up to a limit of 1/3 of the total staff that we're working with, either in the delegations or in Brussels. So we have now embodied inside the EES representatives from the Commission, representative from the Secretariat of the Council, and representative from the Member States. And you have to understand that in the tradition of the EU institution, nothing like that has been tried before. You know, in Brussels, things were rather simple. You were either on the Commission side or either on the Council side, coming from the Member States. And you were fighting each other more or less every day because you thought that you represented two different kind of interests, either the Commission and the EU global interest, or you were coming from the Member States and therefore you were defending the interest of the Member States. The EES is right in the middle of that strong division, that summa divisio, and we're trying to reunite the two interests and try to show that between these two institutions you can find a sort of common path, a sort of synthesis, and that we would succeed in trying to push this common path as much as we can. And of course on both sides, Member States side, Commission side, they are looking at us with some concern, anxiety, and wondering how far we're going to go and not either drop on one side or the other side. And we are in the middle of this. We have to try to keep a sort of balance between the two, and it's not always very easy. So with the Commission, at the moment, it depends very much on whom we're working with, but it's still a sort of long, difficult road that we have to go through, and that will take some time. With the Member States, it's exactly the same. They're following us very closely, wondering whether the EES is really going to represent what they're looking for and the interest of the different 27 Member States. And therefore, we have to go to them. We're accountable to them. We have regular meetings with the different working groups in which the 27 Member States are on the side of the Commission. We chair the Political and Security Committee, and we work with all of them on a regular basis. We have also put inside the EES all the different instruments that were part of the common security and defense policy, the military staff, the unit in charge of strategic planning, the unit in charge of setting up the civilian missions, and we are moving ahead, bringing everybody together and trying to blend all these different cultures together. All this is complicated. We'll need time. We need to be patient. But I think we're slowly moving in the right direction. What are the shortcomings? Because I don't want to take too much of your time, and I would like to just give you a hint about the main difficulties we may be facing today. The first one, I think, is the one I was saying a few words before. It's the relationship with the Commission. What are we trying to do through the EES is, as I was saying before, to try to give life to what is called inside the treaty itself the comprehensive approach. In other words, this idea that with the different elements of the external action, to try to have at the end one single political guideline. To put it in simple terms, is to try to put a little bit more politics and a little bit more of a political dimension in what the European Union has been doing up to now. In other words, to give you a further example, in our relation with Japan or with China, not to have people who deal with trade or people who deal with transport or with energy, but to have behind all that one clear guideline about what we want to do with Japan or with China, so that we become more efficient and we defend in a better way and in a more efficient way the interest of the European Union as such. Once again, it is a bit complicated because we were not used to do that in the past, but this is what we are heading for, and this is where the EES has to prove that it is able to define that political guideline, that political direction that all will have to follow. So I think the ball is very much on our side to prove that we can bring a real added value compared to what existed before. The second difficulty is, I think, the blend of culture I was talking about, and to change what existed before into a true diplomatic service. You have to understand, and this is something that struck me very much when I arrived in the EES, that colleagues that were there before we set up the EES had not much experience of what a diplomatic service is all about. In other words, the kind of interaction you have to set up, for instance, between the headquarters in Brussels and the delegations around the world was not a natural way of doing things. You know, you were drafting reports in Brussels, you were drafting reports in the delegation, and there was not much interaction between the two. And this is something that we have to change, and that we are in the process of changing, and that takes a lot of time. Let me give you one example, because you will understand immediately what I'm talking about. The tradition so far, before we launched the EES, the tradition in the delegation is when a crisis could appear in one of these countries, the immediate result was to close the delegation and bring people back to Brussels. Because there was no idea about staying there, because what they were dealing mostly with, and that was understandable, they were dealing with trade or development, and therefore when there was a crisis, there was no point of staying there because there was no more discussion on trade and development. Now that we have EU delegation that have to deal also with the political dimension of our relationship with those countries, we think it is very important to stay there. And for instance, at the moment in Syria and Damascus, our delegation has remained open. Not much staff are there, 3 or 4 people, not more. But we're one of the few among with the member states that are still present there in Damascus. Out of the 27 member states, I think at the moment in Damascus, we only have 3 embassies that are still open. All the others have left. We have decided, Cathy Ashton has decided, that we should keep our EU delegation open, if only to show to the population in Syria that we were there, that we were going to keep in line, in touch with them, that we're going to keep the contact, and we're going to try to send valuable reports, and reports that are as accurate as possible with what's going on at the moment on the ground. And the simple fact that we are there is making a lot of difference for many of our partners in the member states to just now understand that EU is there as a political delegation and not only as a technical one, as it was the case before. So we have brought in a new, how could I put it, a new culture of crisis management that didn't exist before, and that makes a little bit of a difference there. But we need to do more. We need to blend the different cultures more, because still today, when I ask, for instance, for one of the staff of the EES that was previously working in the Commission, the kind of report they will give to us is the kind of report they used to do before in the Commission, without much political input, great technical competence, great technical expertise, but a lack of a sort of political whole, a political vision that can help us in trying to push forward. Last shortcoming, I would say, is precisely a strategic vision. The Commission and mostly the European Parliament time and again has told us that we should come up with new ideas, that we should be bold, that we should take the initiative. Now that we have this EES, that we should be the one in the lead that comes up with new ideas and that brings new ideas for member states. It's easy to say, it's a little bit more complicated to do. And here we still need to improve our record and to prove to member states that we are able to do that. Why am I saying that? Because by putting an end to the system of rotating presidency, we have put an end to a system whereby every six months a new member state was coming in, was bringing his own ideas, was putting a new momentum to the whole machinery, and was giving a sort of new impulse every 6 months. The problem there is that we were lacking coherence and consistency. The good thing is that there was every 6 months a sort of new push that was rather useful. Of course, with the ES, you have consistency now, you have coherence, but you lack sometimes the impetus that needs to be put time and again into the system if we want it to work. It's just like a bicycle. If you stop pedaling, it will drop. And we have to be aware that people are very much looking at us to come up with new ideas. Now, let's be honest. If you look at the diplomatic scenery at the moment, you don't have many ideas and new ideas coming up. Diplomats are usually renowned for their great sense of cautiousness and for quite often lack of many new ideas. So it's a bit of a challenge for the ES, and we have to accept that we're facing this challenge and that we have time and again to come up with new ideas if we want to be accepted by member states as a reliable partner. Quickly, because I don't want to take too much of your time, and I think question will be quite interesting, just a few words about the substance. And here I would like to be as timely as possible, because as you all know, we're facing at the moment a situation where Europe is going through a very difficult financial and economic crisis, and then many of our partners in the outside world are becoming a bit puzzled, a bit concerned with the way we're trying to manage that crisis. And some people are saying that the credibility of the European Union is affected by this crisis. And to some extent it is true. When you go and you meet your foreign partners, I had to go through that experience recently at the G20 meeting in Los Cabos under the Mexican presidency. The only thing they were talking about was how come the EU for the last 1 year and a half has been unable to put an end to the euro crisis and to find the right solution, and how long will this last? And the question, therefore, that arises from that situation is this having an impact on the way we're dealing with foreign policy and external action? Is the European Union still considered as a reliable partner, a relevant partner in the foreign affairs field? What I can say so far at the moment is that I think we are, and I think we're still considered as a relevant partner by most of our main partners in the world. Whether it be our strategic partners, the United States, Russia, China, Brazil, South Africa, India, and many others. Whether it be the international or regional organization, the United Nations, the Arab League, the African Union. Whether it be our bilateral partners, all of them at the moment, so far, will it last? I don't know, but I hope so. Our main partners are still requesting support, assistance from the European Union, are looking for us to support them and to work with them very closely. And in all the recent crises we have been gone through, whether it be Libya, Syria, today in Mali and the Sahel region in Africa, whether it be, for instance, in recent days, Colombia that has started, I hope, a useful peace process with its traditional opponent, the FARC. All of them have come to the European Union and have asked for us to work with them as closely as possible to try to see what we can do, what kind of contribution we can bring them in what they're trying to do and the kind of political process they're going through. We may not be as efficient as we wish, we would like to. Think about Syria. But we are there. We are working with them, not only in the traditional humanitarian assistance, but very much in the diplomatic field to see how we can bring together the permanent members of the Security Council that at the moment are not talking to each other in the Syrian case. We try to see with Libya what we can do to help them in coming out of their present difficulties. In Mali, we're very much in line with the regional organization, the ECOWAS, to see what we can do to work with the new government that is in place in Bamako, what kind of military assistance we can provide to them, and how we can try to help Mali in regaining control in the northern part of its territory. So we're very much there, and we're very much playing our part there, and I hope this will last. But I think that behind these question mark and the interrogation that may have appeared in the past lies a more complex issue, of which I would just like to say one word and end on this. You know, the balancing act that Europe has been playing in recent years was something in the foreign field, was something like moving from Europe being considered as a sort of soft power, some were saying normative power, somewhat a little bit arrogant and lecturing the whole world about the great success, undoubtedly great success we have had in Europe in stabilizing our continent and helping the economic prosperity to develop in our European Union through the accession process, the partnership of some of our partners in the neighborhood, either in the south or the east, and coming with this recipe and saying to the outside world that this is the way we should move ahead. This was one option. And then going to another option, which will be rather the negative one, saying that because of the financial crisis and because of the difficulties we're facing, Europe is going to be marginalized and will not be any more a relevant partner. We have gone from one to the other easily. And I think the reason behind that balancing act and that difficulty to find exactly our positioning in today's world is because precisely the world is changing, as you all know. It has become a global world with a multipolarity, and that Europe is having some difficulty in defining exactly what should be a role, its part it could play, and maybe the responsibility it could have in the world we're facing today. Now, I think we shouldn't be too self-critical about what we're doing there, because if you try just, for instance, to look at what's happening outside of Europe, and for once not be too much inward-looking, but look at what's going outside, you will see that most of our partners, strategic partners outside there, in the outside world, in the real world, are exactly facing more or less the same difficulties and the same, I would say, questioning as we're moving on. Think about the United States under President Obama. This is a major partner who's wondering whether they should lead from behind in the Arab Spring, wondering what they should do in Asia without losing Europe, who are trying to find a new way of acting in Africa. Just look at the way Hillary Clinton has been traveling to Africa in recent years, and I'm sure Federica would tell much more about this as we move ahead. But think about Russia, think about China, think about Brazil. There you have what is commonly called the regional powers, or maybe even universal powers in the case of China or Russia, who are themselves having great difficulty today in defining the kind of responsibilities they want to face. Think about China in Africa, a very strong economic power there, trying to defend its economic interest as much as it can. But from a political point of view, maybe not so much a political power as maybe we would like her to be, or we had figured out. China is quite present on the Sudan crisis. It's there also in the Horn of Africa, but they don't want to play a too large part in the responsibility there. They're quite happy to leave it maybe to the European Union, certainly to the UN and to others, and they don't want to appear too much in the forefront. So I think what we're facing today is in fact a world where everybody is trying to find its new role, and this is rather difficult for them. And I think Europe is not avoiding that same difficulty, but I think this is really where we are at the moment today. And this is certainly a matter on which the EAS intends to move ahead and to try to define in a better way what we should do. I think one of the clues, and I will just leave you with that, is maybe not as much as we were doing before, trying to define a sort of normative soft power that could rule the whole world and come up and lecturing everyone with what we were doing. I think it will be in a more humbled way, a more pragmatic way, to deal with all the different regional crises we're facing and to try to find the kind of role and responsibility we can play there, whether it be the Arab events as they are taking place in the Arab world, whether it be Africa or Asia or some other places. I think this is where maybe we have something to do, and I hope a valuable contribution to bring to the stability of the global world we're living in at the moment. I'll stop here. I've been quite too long, but thank you very much for listening.
Moltissime grazie, credo che abbiamo avuto tutti un'opportunità straordinaria che poi voi svilupperete con i vostri interventi, le vostre domande, e mi permetto di dire che, siccome purtroppo sono di lungo corso ormai sulle questioni europee, quelle che abbiamo sentito oggi da Vimont e poi che sentiremo dagli altri interlocutori, è credo stata una delle analisi più intellettualmente oneste e utili che io abbia sentito fare sulla reale situazione e le reali sfide della politica estera europea. D'altronde sottolineo un elemento che poi vi do e vi lascio per le vostre considerazioni. La considerazione finale sulla difficoltà che esiste nel mondo contemporaneo di immaginare quale ruolo effettivo si deve svolgere in un mondo che è in profondo cambiamento e dove il balance of power, dove le relazioni di forza, non soltanto quelle militari ma anche quelle economiche, cambiano rapidamente, è un tema, devo dire, relativamente nuovo e che complica, se vogliamo, è affascinante, ma complica un po' le cose, e questa è poi una considerazione che lascio anche a Carlo Scarnero per la sua continuazione, perché in fondo chi ha qualche anno più di voi si ricorda due fasi prima e dopo il 1989 che in fondo era molto più facile descrivere della situazione attuale, perché prima del 1989 si poteva immaginare il mondo e soprattutto l'Europa come un'area divisa in due: sfera di influenza statunitense, sfera di influenza dell'Unione Sovietica. Poi il mondo era molto più complicato ovviamente, ma per la parte essenziale le idee erano chiare. Dopo l'89, per una ventina d'anni, c'è un mondo che muta rapidamente, in cui emerge un'unica grande potenza, che per gli Stati Uniti, che riesce a percepire se stessa in tutte le parti del mondo e riesce a percepire chiaramente, a torto o a ragione, un proprio ruolo mondiale. Oggi non soltanto quella costruzione complessa che è l'Unione Europea, ma anche le potenze tradizionali ed emergenti faticano a capire qual è il proprio ruolo strategico e anzi sembrano spaventate dal doverlo giocare sul piano politico, mentre su quello economico anche le nuove potenze, pensiamo alla Cina, sono molto pervasive, molto aggressive, ma sembra quasi che tutti gli altri, i possibili attori si ritraggano un po'. E questo ci consegna un quadro, ovviamente, poi magari sto dicendo una stupidaggine, ma questo ci consegna un quadro in cui la necessità di un surplus di politica, di immaginazione, di invenzione rende l'esercizio più complicato ma più interessante. Io cedo la parola a Carlo Scarnero, chiedendo evidentemente di sviluppare i temi che sono stati al centro dell'intervento di Vimont, e gli chiedo poi, se vuole, di affrontarlo alla luce anche dell'esperienza della duplice veste che ha giocato, sia da uomo politico di primissimo livello, sia in Spagna che in Europa, è stato per 15 anni parlamentare europeo, e anche per aver avuto un'esperienza fino a pochi mesi fa anche di carattere diplomatico e di governo, sempre con una forte caratterizzazione politica, ed è stato una persona, anche perché ha partecipato alla convenzione per la Costituzione europea, che Carnero si è dedicato sempre molto attivamente, anche sviluppando un ruolo creativo nel pensare il futuro anche istituzionale oltre che politico dell'Unione. E quindi ti chiedo molto molto così semplicemente di chiosare, di ragionare sulla base della tua esperienza come vedi la situazione, come vedi anche i limiti e le difficoltà per quanto riguarda diciamo, lo sviluppo di una reale volontà politica condivisa sulla politica estera e come tu pensi possa evolvere la situazione.
Sì. Grazie Luciano. La risposta sarebbe questa, prima di tutto, vero, questo mondo dimanda un surplus di tante cose, ma prima di tutto un surplus di Europa, assolutamente. Questo mondo dimanda un surplus di Europa. Ma devo dire grazie per l'invito a questa scuola Renzo Imbeni, è un vero piacere. Insieme con Renzo Imbeni ho lavorato al Parlamento europeo 11 anni. Il mio ricordo di Renzo è un uomo politico sincero, di grande onestà e di un grande compromesso, con un gran senso della responsabilità, che sempre sarà con noi. Credo anche che questa scuola ha un programma di elevatissima qualità. I ponenti, non parlo di me, sono importantissimi. Abbiamo ascoltato l'ambasciatore Bimont, un intervento, come tu hai detto, di grande qualità e di sincerità allo stesso tempo. E soprattutto siamo qui a Modena in un'Europa italiana, una Italia senza la quale sarebbe impossibile assolutamente immaginare non solo il passato ma il presente e l'avvenire dell'Unione europea. Fortunatamente questa Italia ha recuperato un ruolo nell'Europa che è buono non solo per il Paese ma per tutti, compresi il mio Paese Spagna, che ha una situazione politica, economica e sociale difficile, simile ma non uguale a quella che ha l'Italia. È vero che l'Unione Europea è in decadenza nel mondo e questa è una domanda importante, centrale, perché la risposta a questa domanda è già data nel giornale, la televisione e la radio. Sì, l'Unione Europea è in decadenza. E la Cina, il Brasile, l'India, tutti loro paesi emergenti andano a lasciare l'Unione Europea dietro. L'Unione Europea diventerebbe così il passato, un po' il presente e il passato. Non è vero. Sono assolutamente contro questa ipotesi e mi sembra un ragionamento che non solo non è utile per gli europei, ma per il resto del mondo. Non è vero. È una falsa ipotesi. Non c'è una decadenza europea e la nostra presenza economica, commerciale, culturale, storica e politica è assolutamente impossibile da dimenticare. Non si può guardare l'Europa così e pensare che sia fare un giro per non parlare con l'Europa o per non tenere conto di quello che rappresenta l'Europa, l'Unione Europea. Ovviamente questa ipotesi è sostenuta, nonostante per molti europei, pensatori e anche responsabili politici. Politicamente l'Europa non è sostituibile. Noi abbiamo valori, diritti e un concetto della democrazia che non è europeo perché è un concetto universale ma che nella Unione Europea è stato approfondito fino in fondo. È per questo che non dobbiamo lecturing altri, ma mostrare l'esempio che l'Unione Europea rappresenta democrazia con diritti e con valori come un punto di arrivo a tanti popoli, a tanti paesi nel mondo. Anche se deve dire che noi siamo una potenza mondiale con un carattere specifico. Per esempio, l'Europa non vuole essere nel mondo come un potere classico, come un superpotere classico che abbiamo conosciuto, l'Unione Sovietica all'epoca, gli Stati Uniti fino ad oggi. No, noi vogliamo essere un potere civile rilevante nel mondo e sottolineo civile. Civile. Questo non significa che l'Europa non vuole avere i mezzi militari per difendere valori, diritti o imporre la pace, ma è un senso diverso di fare la politica estera, di stare nel mondo. Siamo un'altra cosa e questo è un motivo di orgoglio anche per migliorare la nostra presenza nel mondo. È per questo che l'Europa rimane un potere credibile, un partner che si busca, che si trova quando non si trova in altro luogo per tanti paesi. Ovviamente la forma di affrontare la globalizzazione è una forma europea, perché altri non hanno lo stesso concetto di globalizzazione che noi abbiamo e con il quale andiamo a dialogare e anche a lottare all'Organizzazione Mondiale del Commercio, eccetera, eccetera. Il nostro concetto è diverso. Non abbiamo solamente un interesse economico, ma anche la necessità di difendere il nostro modello sociale attraverso parametri sociali e medioambientali che altri hanno dimenticato sempre. E questo è anche molto importante. Ovviamente bisogna essere conscienti di quello che l'Europa è. Se noi stessi non siamo conscienti della capacità e la realtà dell'Europa, pensiamo che siamo assolutamente in decadenza e stiamo aprendo la porta a altri che non hanno né il valore né l'impegno che noi abbiamo per quanto riguarda la democrazia e i diritti dell'uomo. Certamente, come diceva Dumont, la crisi non è una buona cosa per la presenza nel mondo dell'Unione Europea adesso, ma noi abbiamo una crisi di debito. Altri hanno una crisi da sempre e non è una crisi di debito. No, è una crisi di sviluppo, è una crisi di povertà, è una crisi di non coesione economica e sociale e questo vale sia per la Latino America e per Washington. Ho fatto le vacanze negli Stati Uniti, bellissimo, straordinario, ma si trova una descoesione sociale impressionante che noi non abbiamo. Allora la nostra crisi è una crisi, certo, l'abbiamo, ma bisogna dire che non è una crisi strutturale, che è una crisi anche che non è stata originata nell'Europa. In questo senso, credo che l'esperienza che noi abbiamo avuto fino ad oggi, per quanto riguarda la politica estera, è un'esperienza positiva. E il mio bilancio è positivo. Sì, sono in minoranza, riconosco, ma è positivo. Perché se si fa un'analisi di quello che ha fatto l'Unione Europea da tempo, da 10, da 20 anni, troveremmo tante cose positive. Per esempio, la strategia verso il Centro America. La pace a Centro America si è fatto con il concorso diretto dell'Europa. La strategia euro-mediterranea, tanto criticata, va bene, d'accordo, ma oggi siamo l'unico potere politico nel mondo che ha un quadro dei rapporti nel Mediterraneo e non solamente una presenza militare navale nel Mediterraneo o una presenza nel bilancio di un paese o un altro nella regione. La cittadinanza europea dimanda diretta e chiaramente che questa esperienza sia migliorata. Allora, la cittadinanza europea dimanda una politica estera attiva dell'Unione Europea. Il momento nel quale la cittadinanza è stata chiarissima per dimandare questo è stato la guerra Iraq 2003, o era nella Convenzione Europea, certo. E quando è arrivata la notizia del primo missile lanciato del Bateau, Bunker Hill, si potrebbe pensare due cose. La prima, domani la Convenzione è finita. Andiamo a casa, ritorniamo a casa non c'è più. O un'altra cosa, bisogna approfittare di questa situazione per dimostrare che se l'Europa vuole evitare questa politica unilaterale di guerra, di attacco, deve avere tutti gli strumenti per avere una politica estera propria e comune. E questa è stata la decisione della Convenzione, che dove ha avanzato più è stato nel capitolo che riguarda la politica estera, a mio avviso. Ovviamente noi abbiamo un bilancio positivo con aspetti chiari. Noi abbiamo rispettato il diritto internazionale e il multilateralismo, la primazia dei valori democratici e i diritti dell'uomo. Abbiamo rifiutato l'uso della forza come ultimo recurso e rifiutato anche la guerra come strumento per imporre interessi economici classici. Abbiamo lottato contro la povertà. Siamo il grande potere mondiale per quanto riguarda la cooperazione allo sviluppo. Per noi gli obiettivi sociali e mediambientali sono sempre presenti. Questo bilancio è conosciuto per i nostri partner e anche per i cittadini dei nostri partner. Quando nell'Egitto, quando nella Siria si lotta per la democrazia, si pensa in un riferimento all'Europa. In Egitto è difficile pensare che sia un cittadino che non conosca il ruolo di altri e sostenere la dittatura da tanti anni. Noi non abbiamo fatto tutto quello che si doveva fare per finire con la dittatura in Egitto, in Tunisia, eccetera, ma altri hanno sostenuto direttamente quella dittatura. Tutto questo si espressa in differenti azioni esteriori. Può essere che non abbiamo ancora una unica politica estera dell'Unione Europea e può essere che non dobbiamo avere questa politica unica esteriore dell'Unione Europea. È per quello che nel Trattato dell'Unione Europea, questa Costituzione europea con un altro nome, e devo dirlo chiaramente, si parla di politica estera e di sicurezza comune, non di politica unica estera e di sicurezza. Perché? Perché noi siamo l'Unione Europea, noi non siamo un Stato nazionale, noi non siamo gli Stati Uniti d'America, siamo un'altra cosa, siamo l'ornitorrinco del Linneo. Questo vuol dire che siamo diversi e i nostri problemi sono anche la nostra possibilità di andare avanti. Politica comune. Ovviamente abbiamo dei problemi, segnalati già di Vimont. Per esempio, è molto difficile identificare interessi comuni, sempre. E interessi fra gli Stati membri sono contraddittori qualche volta e saranno così. Non è la stessa cosa l'Inghilterra che l'Italia, non è la stessa cosa la Spagna che la Finlandia. Sarà così. E ovviamente c'è anche l'interesse di altri partner per trovare le fissure nella politica estera europea. Bisogna essere realisti. Allora, la sfida è a migliorare la nostra capacità e anche la nostra visibilità. Adesso non abbiamo scusa per non avere una politica estera comune, perché abbiamo tutti gli strumenti. Abbiamo il servizio di azione estera, che è importantissimo, con la signora Ashton alla testa di questo servizio. E devo dire una cosa, un'altra volta in minoranza. È molto facile fare la critica alla signora Ashton. Molto facile. Ho conosciuto la signora Ashton al Parlamento Europeo, quando era membro della Commissione di Commercio Internazionale, la signora era commissaria per questa cartera. Molto facile. È più difficile riconoscere tutto quello che si è fatto attraverso i 2 anni e mezzo del mandato della signora Ashton. Per esempio il servizio di affari esteri, che cosa difficilissima. O era al Ministero Affari Esteri spagnoli quando questo servizio cominciava a andare meglio. L'accordo politico di Madrid, 26 luglio 2010, si è fatto sotto la presidenza semestrale spagnola dell'Unione Europea e è stato il punto per andare avanti questo servizio. Allora, nessuno poteva immaginare che in questo tempo il servizio esisteva e lavorava. Esiste e lavora. E altre cose, non si può accettare che la incapacità degli Stati per avere una posizione comune sia responsabilità della commissaria vicepresidente Ashton. Ovviamente Ashton è una persona e sbaglia, come io, ma non è la responsabile di tutto quello che si dice. Devo dirlo, sono in minoranza, può firmarlo anche. Secondo luogo, il trattato ha stabilito obiettivi per la politica estera, molto importante. Non vale qualche sia politica estera, non vale qualche sia. Bisogna andare all'articolo dove sono scritti gli obiettivi della politica estera europea e si troverà un catalogo assolutamente progressista di azioni internazionali, sia politicamente, sia economicamente, sia socialmente, sia militarmente. Io mi ricordo che quell'appello della cittadinanza europea al 2003, dicendo non siamo d'accordo con questa guerra illegale, ha lo stesso nodo che gli obiettivi che sono nel trattato per la politica estera. È molto importante, perché è il quadro dove l'Unione deve lavorare. È un quadro complessivo e anche consensuale e soprattutto costituzionale. Il trattato anche ha fatto un grande passo avanti per quanto riguarda i procedimenti. Per la prima volta si può applicare la maggioranza qualificata. La cooperazione rafforzata è una possibilità nella politica estera. Prima era interdita questa possibilità. Se parliamo della politica comune di sicurezza e difesa, abbiamo più di competenze, la possibilità della cooperazione strutturata, l'Agenzia Europea di Difesa, eccetera. E per la prima volta anche l'aiuto umanitario è nel trattato. Credo che il risultato di tutto questo, per esempio, è che per la prima volta l'Unione Europea è presente nelle Nazioni Unite come tale e non è cosa piccola. Sì. O era a New York allo stesso momento quando il rappresentante dell'Unione, che era un spagnolo, molto bravo, lavorava, batagliava e aveva una vittoria per noi. Perché tanti altri, compresi i poteri emergenti, hanno lavorato contro noi. Questo bisogna dirlo, perché l'Unione Europea ha dei amici e anche dei competitori. Noi siamo nelle Nazioni Unite, di un modo o un altro. E questo mi serve per una sorta di conclusione. Chi si para l'Unione Europea adesso deve diventare un'unione politica plena. 2 cose. La prima, non siamo ancora un'unione economica. Siamo una unione doganale, siamo un mercato unico, siamo un'unione monetaria, ma oggi stiamo definendo l'unione economica. E una seconda cosa, la capacità per avere una politica estera comune. Senza un'unione economica, senza una politica estera comune, la possibilità di diventare un'unione politica federale, o sono un federalista convinto e confesso, è ancora lontana. E il mondo bisogna un'Unione Europea che sia un'unione politica federale. Al tempo della guerra fredda, diceva Luciano, l'Unione Europea è una sorta di terza via, cosa diversa. Oggi, senza l'Unione Europea, sia la globalizzazione, sia la tentazione dell'unilateralismo sarebbe sempre presente. Bisogna non dimenticare che abbiamo oggi agli Stati Uniti un presidente che Obama, va bene, non lo so dopo le elezioni di novembre, un ritorno dell'unilateralismo negli Stati Uniti senza un'Unione Europea convinta della sua capacità, convinta di che non è in decadenza, convinta di che bisogna esistere e lavorare in questo mondo, sarebbe una catastrofe. E credo che questa deve essere una questione a riflettere, perché già si lavora, ma si deve lavorare meglio e con un sostegno più ampio della cittadinanza e dei politici. Noi abbiamo già esaurito tutte le parole negative per quanto riguarda l'Unione Europea. Diciamo qualche parola positiva. Grazie.
Grazie Carlo Scarnero e peraltro ci permette poi di lanciare la palla alla professoressa Bindi. Devo dire, sottolineo l'elemento molto importante che è quello che in un continente come il nostro, pure con differenze da paese a paese, dove i messaggi che vengono dati all'opinione pubblica, dai media ma anche da qualche commentatore politico tendono ad addossare all'Unione Europea tutte le colpe, molte più colpe di quelle che in realtà ha, è opportuno sottolineare come si siano raggiunti anche nel campo della politica estera risultati molto importanti nel corso di questi anni e che il vero problema, come tu sottolineavi, è quello di riuscire a fare l'ultimo miglio, l'ultimo passo, che è quello io lo direi in questo modo, di richiedere alle classi dirigenti europee, qualunque sia il loro orientamento politico, quel surplus di responsabilità, come è successo nei decenni passati, per compiere scelte che possono essere nel breve termine anche difficili all'interno del loro paese, ma che sono strategiche per il futuro. E giustamente l'Europa non ha esaurito il proprio ruolo nel mondo, nella storia, ma dipende in larga misura da noi e da queste e dalle prossime generazioni, sia di cittadini che di leadership politiche, di segnare il futuro. Professoressa Bindi, Carlo Scarnero ci ha lanciato una buona palla, anche perché ci diamo del tu, diciamo, come da molto tempo, perché tu ti sei occupata di tutti gli aspetti in fondo della politica estera dell'Unione Europea, hai pubblicato anche libri, alcuni dei quali come questo, diciamo, sono un punto di riferimento anche accademico, e ti sei dedicata moltissimo alla questione dei rapporti transatlantici, evidentemente quel complesso rapporto strategico tra Unione Europea e Stati Uniti, che è stato in realtà per moltissimo tempo, fino ad oggi o fino a poco tempo fa, un rapporto assolutamente asimmetrico, non soltanto per il peso diverso dei paesi, ma perché è stato un rapporto tra Stati Uniti da un lato e molti soggetti, tutti europei, diversi da loro dall'altro. E ricordo su questo anche Renzo Imbeni, all'epoca della guerra in Iraq, sottolineava come una delle necessità imperiose dell'Unione Europea di parlare con una voce sola e di sviluppare pur nella diversità un proprio approccio era una delle condizioni per essere credibile sulla scena internazionale. E quindi adesso Pier Vimont ci ha detto che alla domanda qual è il numero di telefono dell'Europa c'è una risposta, e questa è positiva, no? Fu Henry Kissinger a dire vabbè, io chiamo anche l'Europa, ma datemi il numero di telefono che non ce l'ho. Adesso sappiamo che c'è una filiera di rappresentanza decisionale che è più chiara. In questo senso come vedi rispetto a quel passato i rapporti transatlantici, se pensi che questo sia ancora l'asse centrale nell'interesse reciproco, e quali possono essere in qualche modo gli sviluppi in un mondo che cambia? Ti do semplicemente qualche passaggio, poi tu ovviamente puoi sviluppare come ritieni più opportuno. Prego.
Comprenderete, spero se mi metto in piedi, ma il mio vero lavoro è quello di insegnare all'università e sono abituata a passeggiare di fronte alla cattedra. Prima di tutto grazie mille per l'invito Io ero una ragazzina come voi e quando facevo lo stage al Consiglio mi intrufolavo di nascosto nel comitato di conciliazione per vedere Renzo Imbeni che era il copresidente del comitato di conciliazione quando era appena iniziata, e vederlo all'opera, perché già allora per noi era un personaggio leggendario, e riuscire a mettere insieme il Consiglio, il Parlamento e la Commissione era di per sé un'avventura molto affascinante, quindi sono onorata di essere qui e complimenti per il programma pazzesco che è stato messo insieme. Io di Summer School ne faccio tante, quindi so la fatica che c'è dietro, e questa è veramente una grandissima Summer School. If you may allow me, I will speak in English. So for Ambassador Vimont to be able to react and correct me. And we actually met in the United States, where I have been living for the past 4.5 years. And I will start answering to you, Luciano, with the reason why I became an expert in European foreign policy is because I went to the United States. I was a fellow at Brookings, and I was supposed to work on Europe, and then 1 week into the job, the boss called me and they said, let's go for lunch. So we go for lunch, and it's like, we're very happy you're here. And my fellowship was paid by the Italian-US Council. And it's like, we're very happy to have you here. And yeah, do a couple of things on Italy, but we don't really care about Italy. And maybe you want to do a couple of things on Europe, but we don't really care about Europe. What we really care about is the European foreign policy. So would you please write something on European foreign policy? Up to that point, I have been mainly an expert in this internal decision-making. So this is why I started to work on the European foreign policy, because this is really the only thing that really interested the US, especially in 2008, which is when I arrived there. And my first point, and I will then explain to you why later on, my first point is that 2008, 2009 has been and Lisbon Treaty has been a huge missed opportunity. I won't be as pessimistic than others, but I love your comments, Carlos, but I can't find myself to be as optimistic as you are. It was a huge opportunity, and I will explain you why. But in order to explain you why, let's step back in time one moment and look at transatlantic relations. Luciano mentioned a crucial year, 1989. 1989 was a crucial year, and this is basically the year where Europe and the US somehow started to drift apart. In Europe, in italiano, noi diciamo la fine della guerra fredda, the end of the Cold War. In the US, they say, when they refer to 1989, it's like when we won the Cold War. From the US point of view, having fought communists for 45 years, they won the war, even if it was a Cold War, but they won it. So that entered a new phase where even among the Democrats, they started to reflect on themselves. So we won. We were two superpowers. We are the only superpower left. So we have a right duty. The Americans are very good at putting duties and rights on the same plate. We have a duty and a right and duty to be the superpower in the world. And that's one thing. The corollary of that is that the strategic importance of Europe started to change. I completely agree with you, Carlos, when you say that we can't do without Europe from a political point of view. But in the US, people are not all of them agreeing on that. Not all of them agreeing. They don't. Some of them see it, some of them don't. So the general idea, which took some time to develop, is that we are the winners. Europe doesn't need us anymore. Europe can now step forward to be a node of himself. If you look at it historically, we were also talking at lunch with Salvatore here, the process of European integration, political integration, only stepped forward when the US was supporting it. Different is the story with foreign policy and defense. They have had a much more blurred relationship with that. But little by little, as the world was changing after 1999, the idea was that now Europe was a grown-up, and it should act as such. The culmination of these 20 years of change came with Barack Obama. Also for one reason which has been stressed at the beginning in Europe is that Obama, differently from his predecessors, is not an East Coast guy. He's a West Coast guy. And there's a huge difference between the East Coast and the West Coast. The East Coast is faced over Europe. The West Coast is not. He was partially raised in Indonesia, so his view of the world, seen from Hawaii, the world is different than seen from the East Coast. So for Barack Obama, Europe was not going to be a problem anymore, and since it was implementing the Lisbon Treaty, on which there were huge expectations. The U.S. Ambassador Vimont was there, and I think you can testify on me. Fine, Europe is going to be our partner. Exactly why, for the reason you were mentioning, because it's the only part of the world where we have exactly the same values on fundamental issues, save death penalty, I would say. And so at the beginning, the Obama administration was very open towards the idea, very interested in having the possibility to dialogue one-to-one. Phil Gordon, who is my former colleague at Brookings and has been for the past 4 years a very powerful Assistant Secretary of State for Europe, which is, I should say, more Francophile and a Germanophile than others Southerphile. But Phil embarked on a tour of capitals, asking, so, what is going to happen with the new Lisbon Treaty? Who should we relate with? Who should we call? And with all due respect, Ambassador Vimont, do we really have only one single phone number? We'll go back to that. So he went around the capital, and basically the answer he got in most places, I happened to be in one of those meetings, was, Lisbon Treaty is important, the diplomatic service is important, but we are the one who really matter. Don't really talk to them. Talk to us. Talk to us, the member state. We are the member state. You want to talk to us. So the Americans are by definition pragmatic. Europeans want to talk to us as one. Good, we are ready for that. The Europeans don't want to do it. Who cares? It's their problem. So basically, they went back to bilateral relationship, which is really a big shame. Because, for instance, for the first time, they had created a desk for EU matters. In the Department of State, until the Obama administration, there was not a EU office. There was Europe, which is different. Even Phil is Assistant Secretary of State for Europe and Eurasia, which is a different issue. So it was a huge missed opportunities. When Ambassador Vimont were there, when the administration came in, it was ridiculous, pitiful, embarrassing to see how the European states competed against each other in order to be the one to shake hands with Mr. Obama, to be the one to shake hands with Hillary Clinton. It was embarrassing. Me first, pick me. I have G8 presidency. Pick me. I have whatever presidency. I have EU presidency. It was embarrassing. And the result, one of the results was, for instance, the cancellation of the EU-US summit in Madrid. Basically, the White House got fed up. The European Union leaders were discussing, to use a gentle term, about who should be there. Zapatero wanted to be the one, and Barroso wanted to be the one, and finally cancelled. We had the EU-US summit at the Lisbon Treaty at the margin of the NATO Council, and Obama basically came out saying, no more of this. They bombarded me with technical issues I'm not interested in. So it was a huge setback for Europe, and as I said, it's a huge missed opportunity. And it went on. If you look, it's true, we have a European Union High Representative, and I do agree with you can't blame her for most things, because it's tough, as Ambassador Vimont recalled, and I completely agree with Luciana, that it is rare to find a diplomat which has the intellectual honesty that Ambassador Vimont has. Building an institution from scratch is hard. So she had a very tough job. They are having a very tough job, and we should always remember that. We can't expect this to begin as from the beginning. But certainly the member states are not happy, not helping. Take the G8, for instance. I mean, again, it's ridiculous. We have 4 partners, the European Union, 4 Europeans, often quarreling with each other. Result is G8 is much less important than it used to be. So the problem is that on one side, with all difficulties, you have something which is slowly trying to shape in the US, in Europe. You actually have a number of important results. The new defense minister in Egypt, she wrote a paper. It's online. He wrote a paper. Sorry, it's online when he was doing some training in the US, clearly stating how the role of the EU in the Middle East had replaced the role of the US. The problem is the general perception is not that. Problem is that the division among Europeans most of the time void the European action, or at least get more of the attention of the media. So it's and the European crisis in an election year has not helped either. On the Euro crisis, we do have different views. And how the Euro crisis will develop, I think, will affect EU-US relationship also in foreign policy. First of all, as it happens in Europe, domestic politics often dictates the agenda. It's the case in Germany with Mrs. Merkel. It's the case in the US. So American leaders, they quickly all forgot that the economic crisis actually started in the US. And they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. And whenever you suggest, the nice thing about the US is that if you are, if you work for a respected institution and you write something which is a little bit decent, they actually listen to you. At least they ask your advice. Whether you listen to you is another issue, but at least they ask for your advice. And when you say, it might be helpful when you talk to the Europeans and tell them that they have to save the crisis, that to remind that started here, that it actually originates in the US. But clearly for the elections, especially for the Obama administration at this moment, it's easier to say it started in Europe. It might also help if you help in the soft way the US used to do. I mean, sending Timothy Gardner to the EU finance ministers meeting last September in Warsaw was a huge mistake. You don't want to lecture proud economic ministers in front of the world and say, you haven't got it right. I'm going to tell you how you have to deal with that. Of course, forgetting that you are the origin of that. So the Obama administration really wants Europe to save the euro. Let's put it like this. The White House really wants to save the euro. Other parts of the administrations are divided among whether it would be a disaster if a euro collapsed for the US, or if it could be, after all, an opportunity for the US. My view is clearly that it would be a whole disaster. It would be a setback not only for Europe but for the rest of the world. But these views are competing. The Romney team, it would be, with all due respect, a disaster both for the US and Europe and for EU-US relations. From the little we have seen on foreign policy from Romney, because they don't really talk much about foreign policy, because clearly it's one of the issues where Obama has been more successful, so they can't say much. But from the little we have seen from the Tour de Capitale that Romney did, I mean, clearly his mind is back to old Europe. Clearly his mind is back to old Europe. Britain and Poland and Israel. So it would be, and my understanding is that they're clearly anti-European. So that vision that you were saying, Carlos, before, that Europe is, you can't do without Europe because we have the same values. Clearly the Republicans don't see that. The Democrats mostly see that, but Republicans clearly don't see that. So it would be a whole disaster. So it is a very blended very blended picture. You said in the beginning, Ambassador Vimont, that Hillary talks to Cathy. She does. We do lots of joint press communique. Now, the question is, does this really matter? I know the two ladies like each other. Okay, that's okay. But from a U.S. point of view, the fact that two people like each other and get along each other, it doesn't really mean that politically, it means that they respect each other as person. It doesn't necessarily mean that they politically respect the person. It's a different concept. You're supposed to be polite with everybody. You're supposed to be nice with everybody. Certainly having a good personal relation helps a lot. But it doesn't mean that you endorse the person politically, if I can make myself clear. So does she really negotiate with her? Does the member state really allow her to negotiate for real? That's a big question mark. I'm not completely sure. You asked Carlos whether we really need a unified foreign policy. I do think so. I mean, in your words, Ambassador Vimont, it's without a European Union foreign policy strategy, we are going to go nowhere. And the last revision of the security strategy was, as you know, it was basically impossible to really update the paper. So we do need a EU strategy. We do need to strategize. We do need to give the image in Washington as elsewhere in the world that we are working together if we want to be a relevant partner. We need, as I said, we do need to have a long-term perspective. Now, the world is changing. Where do we want to go? What is our goal? I mean, clearly, our foreign policy is different from the United States. And I'm proud of that because we lack the military the military substance that the United States is. Clearly, our foreign policy is soft diplomacy, and soft diplomacy has worked. If you think of the most important part of the foreign policy, which is enlargement, soft diplomacy works. So where are we going to go? What do we want to do? We have to ask this question to ourselves. We have to be aware of that if we want to sell it to the rest of the world, in particular to the US. The questions, whenever you have a negotiation with an American, the main question at the table is, that the American negotiator will ask himself is, what's in for me? Now, when you negotiate, you need to know what is your selling, what is your advantage, and I'm not sure we are clear on that. If you think about that, you might remember that in 1813, Napoleon sold Louisiana to the United States, something that the president was widely criticized for buying Louisiana for, if I remember well, $50,000. Now, the reason why Napoleon sold it is because he saw that with the Louisiana Purchase, in the long term, the U.S. would replace the UK at the leadership of the world. He had a vision of where the world was going. And I think this is where we are lacking today. We still have too many actors. We have to streamline. We have a foreign high representative, let her do the job. Let not undermine her with other actors, external, both in the Commission and the Council. We also, I think, should also need to use the crisis as a virtuous factor. I mean, we are small countries. We can have working, effective embassies everywhere. I think we should start doing what the Scandinavians are already doing, pooled embassies. I know it's tough. I know it's difficult, but I think it should be done. EU-wide embassies, not everywhere. I mean, in Washington would be difficult, but in other countries we could do it. You have a EU embassy and you have a national embassy with reduced staff working together. It can be done. It would give a message of unity outside the world and to the United States. And intra-European embassies. These are, frankly, redundant in today's world. do we really need full-flag embassies in, do the Italians really need full-flag embassies in Paris, London, save Belgium, and so on and so forth? We don't. We're living in an IT world. Most of what diplomats send back to their home countries in the cables is actually what you read it on the newspapers and the social networks. So let's get rid of that and let's concentrate on being more effective where we need to do it. So to end, if we want to matter in EU-US relationship, and I am truly convinced, as Carlos said, that we need to work together, that the values that we have been developing along the centuries in Europe need to be at the center of our foreign policy for the rest of the world. Why so many people died? Why so many people fought for them? I mean, I truly believe we are lucky to live in the Western world. So if these are our values and we want to promote them, then we need to be more effective. And to be more effective means putting our national pride aside, working better together, and enhancing the European level politically, and then the United States will respect us as a major partner, and then we will be able to get at the negotiating table with them what we want. Until we will be a weak partner, or at least a perceived weak partner, divided, and a divided partner is always a weak partner by definition, then we won't be able to win our battles. And what is happening in international fora, and I'm finishing with that, Copenhagen, it's a major warning. Remember what happened in Copenhagen in the Environment Summit? The Europeans went there and said, "Yeah, this is our theme. This is where we lead," which we did. What happened? Obama closed himself in the room with China, Brazil, and a couple of others, left the EU out, and locked the deal or non-deal. So we don't want that. I think we have values that we can promote, but we need to work better to do it.
So thank you very much, Federica. I have to say that your English improved. E anche la tua conoscenza della questione. L'elemento da sottolineare è che anche in questo caso si dimostra come la rivendicazione di un'identità e di una supposta sovranità nazionale da parte dei singoli Stati membri è contro l'interesse comune e la logica ci rende più deboli nel mondo. Siamo un po' in ritardo con l'andamento dei lavori, però suggerirei che ci prendiamo 5 minuti di pausa, vuole dire 8 reali, ma ufficialmente 5, quindi alle 5:20 riprendiamo perché alle 6 dobbiamo chiudere, e chiedo già se ci sono, come auspico, persone che intendono prendere la parola per fare considerazioni o domande, cominciano a segnalarmelo, così ripartiamo subito in presa diretta.
Lui in quella fase era una cosa molto pionieristica, cioè non c'era ancora una relazione consolidata, e sa che cosa faceva? Per andare a questo risultato, perché per gli altri non aveva particolare, si leggeva dei dossier di questa portata, non di tanto che altro serve nessuno, perché io andavo con lui qualche volta a Strasburgo, sempre per il mio lavoro e la famiglia a cui badare, e mi tornava a casa dopo 5 giorni che ero via, e gli occhietti piccoli, dicevo, cosa hai fatto? Dicevo, oh, io, va gordi, e poi dicevo, ho capito, quando andava a sé, trovare sul tavolo dove lavorava, ci passava la notte con la musica e i dossier, e dormire 2 ore per notte tutto il tempo che stavo. Poi a casa mi dormivo 12 ore di tardi, lo facevo mettere, cercavo di farlo riposare, anche se è stato sempre una grossa gara tra Renzo. E lei pensi che ha fatto poi 10 anni di vicepresidente, 6 su 12 per la come avrebbe fatto a responsabile? Cioè probabilmente è un esempio di carattere, di volontà, ma guardi, soprattutto anche nell'idea della politica che faccio che è quella non solo adesso io poi sono così orgogliosa che abbia fatto da 7 anni, non faccio altro che costruire cose in suo nome che non è per me volentieri. Io ho la fondazione che sto cercando di sdoganare del tutto, ma ho avuto a che fare adesso un anno a passare dal notaio all'ufficialità, nel senso che sono andata al notaio a febbraio del 2011, la fondazione ha ottenuto il riconoscimento giuridico dalla regione Emilia-Romagna a fine di gennaio di quest'anno. Ci ho messo un anno e 13 mesi, poi guardi anche adesso sono ancora nel marasma, sto aspettando la sede del comune di Bologna che mi torna da 4 anni che arriva dal lontano, è una grande difficoltà, però mentre allo stesso tempo a Bologna abbiamo costituito di Bologna è andata avanti un po' meglio la cosa di fare un centro studio e iniziativa politica, e con quello faccio 4 iniziative l'anno, mi hanno dato un ufficio, insomma lì andiamo un po' meglio, però santificazione io ci quella è una cosa che è carina, facciamo delle belle cose, però su una scala molto più ridotta, la provincia di Bologna, dove però c'è poi un terreno, insomma lì le cose vengono bene, non abbiamo mai problemi a avere il pubblico, ad esempio, ma volentieri, guarda, perché poi
Sono rimasta così male, io non sapevo che era malato, sono rimasta così male quando mi è morta che non lo volevo chiedere a nessuno,
non lo volevo far sapere alla figlia, poi a nessuno, perché di fatto un sacco non voleva stare in malato, e secondo me ha avuto ragione. Adesso io dico che ha ragione, se capitasse questo me farei uguale. Però sai, è stata dura, fa finta di niente per 6 anni, io poi l'ho saputo per 6 anni, ma mi risultò dopo che ero lui per 4 anni non ha detto niente nemmeno a me. Il che non era facile, sa, perché io ero una moglie molto intrusiva, nel senso per la salute, non in altri sensi. Comunque complimenti e mi dispiace il piccolo impatto negativo. No, ma lei aveva ragione, le devo chiedere scusa perché io ero un po'
non sapevo
lì.
di chiedere,
No, perché abbiamo i ragazzi con il badge, quelli che non sono seduti qui, che non sono studenti, c'è tutto uno staff che...
No, scusa, carinissimo, sono alla prendere.
Sì, come vede. No, ma ha ragione, mi dispiace, non sapevo che l'abbiamo portata a pranzo. La cucina modernista, e poi cucina modernista. E beh, anche a me il primo giorno che siamo portati a pranzo con il presidente Schulz e siamo servito 4 portate. Stavo lì, anche il pomeriggio ho avuto dei problemi. Brava Fede, quello in inglese è veramente sciolto, quello video molto.
No, c'est vrai. Folgorata sulla via del Massimo, c'est vrai, parce que quand Monica, come tutto il giorno, et Monica comme secrétaire générale du Centre de la Ligue européenne, et moi j'étais dans mon 2e année des études de Florence. Je suis en train d'aller à Sciences Po l'année suivante. Et Monica vient, je me rappelle, j'avais à 2h13 pour étudier, et j'ai dit, manifestation des gens qui développent européens. Je dis, c'est pour m'ajouter, mais tout le monde, c'est ça que je peux faire, madame la vie. Je vais aller à Catherine, qu'est-ce que je peux faire pour toi? Et alors elle m'a ramené à l'hôtel et puis m'a amené la vie. Et c'est comment que tout ça a commencé? Parce qu'on a fait des groupes des Sciences Po, des gens fédératifs de Sciences Po qui existent toujours, sur moi qui l'ai créé. On a fait des journaux, et c'est comme ça qu'on a fait ça. Folgorata de France, che vede le cose che sono ma dove voglio, il y a des cose
pubblico esterno può fare delle domande?
Diamo la priorità ai ragazzi, poi sì. On a fait les paris des jeunes. Et il y avait encore le mot de Berlin, mais il y avait les gens de l'Est aussi. Oui. C'était settembre.
Sì, era esattamente. E qui a modo di nuovo on était avec Klaus Weber, avec tous les jeunes à Budapest, avec les jeunes allemands de l'Est. Notre système est absolument généraliste, parce qu'il y a une grande participation des jeunes. La soir même, il muro crolla. C'était à cause de lui, oui.
Anecdote, c'est la première fois que j'ai connu Monica. C'était formidable parce que c'était une conférence en Italie quelque part, mais où il fallait parler anglais. Alors je suis arrivé, etc. Je ne parle pas anglais, alors je parlais italien, il m'a traduit. Mais après, quand les questions ont commencé, j'ai répondu en anglais. Simplement, je n'avais pas anglais.
Ah, è vero, ma...
A Pisa.
Mais bon, on s'est bien amusé. Le problème, c'est que c'est pas encore fait. C'est pas encore fait, c'est ça le problème.
Nous, on était collègues au ministère des Affaires étrangères italien.
Ah, è vero, perché lavoravi
Pendant une période.
il Ministero delle Politiche.
No, esteri.
No,
Io con Seria e i coranieri, dove confinavamo.
Après ça, j'ai juré que jamais je vais au ministère des Affaires étrangères à nouveau si je connaissais bien la personne avec laquelle je vais travailler.
Non comment. Non comment.
Madonna.
Oh, sono passati 6 minuti. Beh, sì, adesso li facciamo rientrare.
Mi mettevo
Ma perché era così?
Sì, ma io mi mettevo mon chef de temps, les définir, mon vraiment définir, donc il me mettait les fleurs de bac dans l'eau. Et moi, je suis le contraire, le président, c'est comme ça, comment dire, difficile.
Ma funziona questi giorni?
Quand vous voyez ça,
Il était plus content.
alors je suis contente, oui.
Questa sala è bellissima. Tu sai chi ha un po' di benefatto delle persone? Et puis c'est ma famille de Ferrara, c'est vrai que...
Oui, parce qu'on était dans le même état, parce que Modena est devenue capitale lorsque Ferrara est passé sur le contre-départ, 1795 quelque chose. Et quand c'est cet bâtiment est depuis le 13e siècle, l'hôtel de la ville, et c'est intéressant, si on aura le temps peut-être, et c'est intéressant parce qu'il y a encore des salles qui sont là où il y a le maire, etc., après le bureau opérationnel sont ailleurs, qui montrent vraiment les caractères de la ville parce que depuis toujours, et même maintenant, le bâtiment est un bâtiment ouvert. Les gens peuvent rentrer, et même sans contrôle. Il y avait une salle, par exemple, comme on avait le marché de la ville qui était à la place. Pendant l'hiver, il faisait très froid, on avait une salle, on appelait encore la salle des fraises, parce qu'on avait du feu, et les gens pouvaient librement prendre le bois, le fraise, tout ça le chauffer. Et c'était toujours à côté du bureau du maire. Non, ou du maire, du podestat, etc. Toujours penser un rapport direct entre le pouvoir et les citoyens. Et il y a une grande guerre à la place, généralement c'était le dieu de l'exécution. Mais après c'est devenu comme des mailles parcours. C'était l'endroit où les gens pouvaient parler de ce que c'était le pouvoir. Pas trop honnête, mais quand même.
Avec prudence.
L'Europe, je mettrai un instant de cette tradition. Bene, ristorati anche se brevemente, abbiamo purtroppo solo una mezz'ora o poco più di tempo, quindi inviterei subito chi lo desidera a porre questioni o sollecitazioni ai nostri interlocutori. Please raise hands. Prego. Sì, ovviamente dica anche il suo nome. Sì.
Salve, il mio nome è Andrea Mathieu e sono dell'Università di Modena e volevo porre una domanda al Bachelor Tourism. I will ask you in English, so at least you can understand. I've noted there's a lack of common EU foreign policy, and we can't question about it. And my question is how the EAS is going to cope with that. And that's it.
Altri?
Buonasera, sono Lorenzo Mari dell'Università di Bologna. I'd like to ask to Ambassador Vimon a question about the timing of the creation of this diplomatic service, which, according to me, has been created really late. If we think about the fact that the foreign and security policy of the European Union was formally created in 1992, and maybe at that time it was a bit early, but then we went through wars in Yugoslavia, and we let war in Kosovo happen, and still in Helsinki, and when a real defense and security policy was created, we didn't create a diplomatic service. So we thought that we could wage war or prevent war with bureaucrats abroad, bureaucrats from the Commission, and not diplomats that are the only people, according to me, that could really represent the European interests. And so, do you think that a timing mistake has been made? And when do you think, and why do you think this mistake took place? Thank you.
Thank you. We can take other, please.
Hello, my name is Una. I'm coming from the University of Bologna. And I have also the question relating to the previous remark. So I would like to ask, do you think that the war in Yugoslavia during the 90s could be avoided by the European Economic Community or Economic Community invitation to join the European club? And actually, I have my second question to address to Ms. Federica. So do you think that maybe the clash between Americans who wanted a war somewhere to put in evidence their force, was that maybe the Yugoslavia that terrain for that? Thank you.
Okay, one more question. Please.
Con riferimento alla gestione di una politica europea comune per quanto riguarda le politiche estere, lei non ritiene che gli interessi comuni o i rapporti di forza che ci sono all'interno dell'Unione Europea e in particolare la forza economica e politica di certi paesi, cito la Russia ma potrei citarne anche altri, e i rapporti di questi con altri paesi al di fuori dell'Unione dell'Unione Europea renda impossibili o fortemente limiti la possibilità di avere una voce comune e soprattutto una voce forte. Perché molte volte l'Europa magari sì, ha trattato i temi della politica estera, secondo me, però non prendendo una posizione decisa e forte. E questo mi lascia perplessa. E poi vorrei in particolare focalizzare l'attenzione sul problema della gestione dell'immigrazione. Secondo lei sarebbe possibile gestire l'immigrazione in maniera comune o ogni paese, come accade oggi secondo me, dovrà attraverso la sua legislazione nazionale affrontare il problema? Ma a questo punto dobbiamo dire che non esiste una politica estera comune.
Ci sono altre domande, perché forse riusciamo a fare solo un giro? Prego.
Stefania Carminati, Università di Bologna. Alla dottoressa Bindi, mi è molto piaciuto il suo intervento, però io ho un dubbio, cioè se, e va bene, la storia non si fa con i se, però se ci fosse veramente una politica comune, estera comune europea, abbastanza forte, diciamo almeno abbastanza, e ci fossero meno divisioni tra Stati membri, alla fine gli Stati Uniti d'America sarebbero davvero disposti a vedere l'Europa come il loro principale partner, soprattutto in un mondo in cui la multipolarità è probabilmente il futuro, e quindi ci sono, insomma, bisogna guardare in realtà a diverse sponde, bisogna guardare al Brasile, al Sud America, quindi al Sud America, e alla Cina e ad altri partner in realtà.
Okay, I think we can answer. Ambassador Vimon, please.
I can try at least to answer some of the question. The first idea was the first question was about the lack of unity, and can we move forward? I personally think, I may be wrong, but that's the way I see it as a practitioner on an everyday basis, that to a large extent there is much more unity among the 27 member states on foreign policy than we sometimes believe. And I'm quite struck by that for one reason that you must never forget. We started on foreign policy around 1972. We called at that time it was political cooperation. We were only 6 at the time. We became 9, 10, etc. We became more and more. But what you have to understand is during all those years, we had working groups working together, trying to define some sort of European common position. And the many years that we have worked there, the record that we have slowly built, the achievements we have made are quite impressive. We're not very good at putting this outside, but it is there. I think our main problem, to be honest, is less about unity than about the possibility to act together and to be a real player. Let me give you one example. In spite of the difference we have on the Middle East peace process, the whole issue between Israel and the Palestinians, we have been able, for the last 10 or 15 or 20 years, to come up with statements that are very powerful. Recently, in spite of the fact of all the divisions that may exist between us, we have been able to come up about 6 months ago with a strong conclusions in the Foreign Affairs Council on one of the most controversial issues, which was the whole issue about Israeli settlements in Palestinian territory. Nobody thought we would manage to do that, and we managed to do that. The Palestinians were amazed that they were able to get such a support. Israel was quite irritated, as you can imagine. What did we do after that? let's be honest, nothing. So those are rather strong words, very impressive words, to be honest. If you read again that statement, it's about Zone C. It's about the unacceptable situation set up by the settlements in the Palestinian territory. It's about how can we build and still go on with the idea of two states living side by side if we allow the Israeli settlements to go ahead. But once we have said that, we don't act accordingly, and nothing comes out of this. And I think our main problem is there. It's, the usual, what is quite often said about Europe, which is true. We are a payer and not a player. Frederica was talking about the Americans. They're very happy with that situation. They're very happy that we are, at the moment, the most important financial contributor for the Palestinian administration. But that we should stay like that, and we shouldn't certainly not try to be a much more important and efficient player in the negotiation. I think it's there that we're facing the real problem. And I think it's there that we have to put our act together and to be more lucid about this lack of action in the European Union. So I think this is where we have to work. This is where we have to be much more present. And you will see that if we are able to do that, the whole system will slowly move and move in the right direction. What I sense, and by that I'm already looking also at the other question, my feeling of what is happening at the moment, what we are witnessing in the European Union and outside of the European Union in the global world, is that something totally new is slowly emerging. The old world is crumbling down. New emerging powers are coming in. And the European Union itself is slowly moving towards, I think, a much more interesting position than it was before. I personally think this is exactly what's happening with the economic and the financial crisis. Everybody is telling us you'd made a terrible mistake in 1992 with the Maastricht Treaty, because you created a monetary union without any policy. It's true, but we all knew that. We were perfectly aware that we were doing that. We did that because we were not able to agree among ourselves on the kind of policy we wanted. So it was a union without political power, and we knew that. Where we made a mistake, and we all did, is that we thought that we had launched something and that the momentum would just build on and would go on because we were moving after the single market towards the economic union, and we thought that political union would follow also, and that we were on a trend that was moving forward. And in fact, it was exactly the contrary. 1992 and the Maastricht Treaty was the end of a process, and unfortunately the beginning of something that was much more complex, where member states tried to come back, where the intergovernmental method regained some ground against the community power, where the Commission, and that was the end of Delors' Commission, and something new came in. The Commission was less, to some extent, less powerful because the member states didn't allow it anymore to do what they wanted to do. So we experienced a totally new political trend whereby the economic and monetary union couldn't blossom and grow. It was exactly the contrary. Now we're coming into a new stage. It's a difficult one because, as I think it's President Barroso who was saying the other day, we're building the lifeboat right in the middle of the storm. And of course it's complicated. But if you look at the achievements that have been made in the last year and a half, and everything that we couldn't put in the Maastricht Treaty now is there. Bailing out system, budgetary discipline. You're going to have the banking union in the near future. I think there is a lot of hope there, and that to go ahead. I personally think it's exactly the same in foreign policy, for one simple reason. And I agree with Frederica when she says it's not only that Hillary and Catherine Ashton speak to each other because they're all very courteous and they talk to each other. it's more complicated than that. It is something that I have discovered while I was in Brussels, is that the Americans have a much stronger and positive appreciation of the European Union than the Europeans themselves. There is something that you experience when you are in Brussels that you can't understand if you don't go through that, is that there isn't one day without a delegation from the American administration coming to Brussels and meeting and having contacts with the European institutions. Why? Maybe many explanations to that. For me, it's because they have seen their own interest in speaking to the European Union and strengthening the European Union to some extent. Maybe not for the same reasons as we are doing it, and this is where I would join Federica in saying that for the Americans it was very obvious after the fall of the Berlin Wall that Europe had a part to play, but it was a very limited part. It was about building the stability of the continent in the economic sector, helping the countries from Eastern and Central Europe in going to the liberal economy and accession into the European Union. That was the part we were responsible for. Then there was NATO for security and defense, collective defense, and there was the OSCE in Vienna for democracy. And the main difficulty we have with the Americans is to try to make them understand that what we're building with the European Union is a political union and not only an economic one. I still think we have a disagreement there and this discrepancy there. Up to a point, because, and that's another point I wanted to say in answer to Federica, there is for me an extraordinary contradiction at the moment with America, which has, I think, from an intellectual point of view, the most pro-European president we've ever witnessed with Obama. He maybe not be totally interested in Europe, but his mindset is very much a European style one. And I think we should try to use that opportunity as much as we could. And Federica is right in saying that we have lost a major opportunity with the Lisbon Treaty. But this is our fault. We raised high expectation, explaining to our American friends that the Lisbon Treaty was a sort of eighth wonder of the world, that they would see everything would change and nothing would be similar to what it was before. And this was, how to put it in simple terms, that was not accurate, diplomat would say. It was a blunt lie. And the Americans understood that because they do their homework. And they came back to us and said, what's the difference with the Lisbon Treaty compared to previously? And there wasn't exactly what we had said was there. I remember discussing with the White House, and at the end of the day, the only explanation I could give to them was the European Parliament would have more powers. But apart from that, it was very difficult to explain to them that there was a major change with the Lisbon Treaty, even if we had the EES, even if we have the High Representative. There's still a lot to do. So I think that what we are seeing, to come back to my main point, is that we're seeing something totally new that is slowly moving in, and it's very difficult. And for those of you who have asked the question, have we lost time? Could we have avoided the war in Yugoslavia, etc.? No, I think we're witnessing a process that is a very difficult one and a very long one, because we're directly facing the sovereignty of member states. It's easier to do it, and let's be honest, it's easier to do it with small and medium member states because they're facing a situation where their diplomatic network is it's not a huge one. They're facing budgetary cuts. They're facing a situation where in order to have a useful diplomatic action, they need the support of the European Union. Think about Slovenia, think about the Baltic states. They don't even know what's happening in the Arab world at the moment. And so they're very happy to be part of this 27 gathering of member states that where they can discuss that, they can play maybe a part, and they can learn and be informed in a much better way. Of course, the situation is totally different for Italy, Spain, of course, Britain, France, or Germany. They have their own diplomatic action, as it was reminded a few minutes ago, and there you can feel sometimes that there is competition and that we have to find, as the European Union, our own place and bring our own added value. But here I want to be optimistic also. There is an added value from the European Union. Let me give you just one example. Libya. When the military operation was launched in Libya, with many member states being against it and others not only being in favor, but being in fact the ones who pushed this whole action, France, Great Britain, Belgium, Sweden, and a few others were part of it. The European Union as such did not participate, and there was a lot of criticism, and once again people came out saying Europe is divided, it's terrible, it's just like in Yugoslavia, it's just like in Iraq, here we are back again with a very much divided Europe. If you look at what happened on the ground, it was not at all the same situation as in Yugoslavia or in Iraq. We didn't agree, the 27 of us, on the military intervention, but on what we wanted to do from a political point of view, there was a total agreement. 5 days after the vote in the Security Council on Resolution 1973, where Germany was not on the same line as France, Britain, and Portugal, by the way, Portugal was there also, we were able, 5 days later in Brussels, to agree on what we wanted to do from a political point of view. Support for the Benghazi Transitional Council, humanitarian assistance, economic assistance, etc., etc. And we managed, the 27 of us, to work on the same path, on the same track, to support what was happening in Libya. But what was the added value of the European Union there? And I'm sorry to underline that, but I think it's very interesting, is that at the same time, if you all remember, African Union was not on the same line. The Arab League was in a somewhat cautious position because they had supported the military intervention, just to discover after a while that public opinion in most of their country were very much against and were not very happy with what looked and was very much another example of a regime change exercise. And you could detect that the Arab League, the African Union, was somewhat embarrassed, very much concerned, and more critical of what the European countries were doing. What the European Union could do, what the High Representative did, what the ES did, was to keep the door open with those regional organizations, work with them, trying to make them understand what we were doing, listening to them. And we managed to keep the dialogue with them, and that was very useful because today, when we're facing again the same kind of situation in Syria, the European Union is able to keep a dialogue with countries like Brazil, like India, like Russia, like China, which I hope in the near future will be hopeful if we want to find a way out of the present crisis. So this is what the European Union can do. We do it in a small scale, it's slow, it's progressive, and we're still very far away from having a foreign policy that is substantial and significant. We still have differences with member states, but I think what we're building up is going in the right direction. Last word about Yugoslavia. Could we have avoided it? I'm not sure, to be honest. I think that sometimes, and this is always a major concern for diplomats, and this is what we're witnessing today in Syria and maybe in Mali, is that sometimes you need to give some, as Mitterrand used to say, laisser du temps au temps. Sometimes diplomats have to wait and allow for the situation on the ground just to unfold and go on until there is a moment when minds are ready to accept the fact that this cannot go on and something new must be done, and new diplomatic initiative must be done. I don't think that we could have had the Daytona negotiation earlier than 1994, because we had to go through this whole process of, unfortunately, hatred, violence, etc., so that at one point people would say that's enough and let's go back to the diplomatic track. It's not over-optimistic to say so, but sometimes I think, unfortunately, there is no other solution. Today in Syria, you can't, and I insist on that, you can't go to the major Western countries or to Russia and China and say, listen, this is ridiculous. We should go back to the negotiating table and try to discuss, because the present military option is only bringing more refugees and more death. They don't listen to you. They just refuse that. And so it's difficult to take an initiative because the minds are not set for listening and being in a listening mode to accept that. So that's reality. Sorry, I've been quite too long.
Well, thank you very much. Abbiamo 5 minuti a testa per le altre risposte. Comincerei da Carlo Scarnero e poi dottoressa Bindi.
In realtà l'unico soggetto politico emergente nell'ultimo secolo nel mondo è stato l'Unione Europea, non un altro. E questo che deve capire, credo, la classe dirigente americana, è questo che deve capire. Quello che loro hanno fatto 150 anni fa, lo stiamo facendo noi adesso. Per esempio, la moneta unica. Il dollaro non esisteva. Prima un punto. Non si è fatto allo stesso tempo che la Costituzione americana. Si è fatto bene dopo. E devo dire che il dollaro è una parola d'origine spagnola. Anche. Allora, noi stiamo facendo la moneta unica. Loro hanno avuto contraddizione così forte che hanno arrivato a una guerra civile, sull'esistenza o no del paese come nazione. Quello non è stato la guerra che noi europei abbiamo avuto, perché la nostra guerra è stata una guerra tra il fascismo e la democrazia. È cosa diversa, è cosa assolutamente diversa. Noi non abbiamo fatto una guerra sull'esistenza dell'Europa, perché l'Europa è un concetto storico, è un concetto ideologico, un concetto politico e umano, culturale, nel quale ha un'origine l'America del Nord, come l'America del Sud. È per questo che considero che Obama ha fatto un grande errore quando ha deciso non andare al summit con l'Unione Europea del 2010, perché se dimandiamo adesso a Obama se farebbe lo stesso, sono convinto dopo l'elezione che direi no, andiamo, perché infine la nostra economia può avere una ripercussione negativa e molto negativa se non coordiniamo con gli europei la risposta a questa crisi del debito pubblico che loro hanno e che noi non abbiamo, perché abbiamo la macchina di fare soldi. Un dollaro che ovviamente si fa circolare senza un respaldo dell'economia reale in quantità straordinaria e quasi inimmaginabile per quanto riguarda l'Europa, un'economia responsabile. Detto questo, la mia risposta alla signora è questa. L'Europa è un luogo politico dove le contraddizioni sono evidenti. Le contraddizioni arrivano anche a una sintesi e questa sintesi è una soluzione. E questo è il risultato che abbiamo come Unione Europea. Allora, della sintesi tra l'interesse dei britannici e degli italiani, degli spagnoli e dei tedeschi, abbiamo edificato questa Unione Europea che ogni giorno ha meno contraddizioni. Ovviamente altri hanno interesse politico-economico di avere un rapporto con un'Europa divisa. Ovviamente il signor Putin sarebbe felice di avere un rapporto con tale o quale governo dell'Europa, ma non con una posizione politica europea che demanda democrazia, che demanda rispetto ai diritti umani, eccetera, eccetera. E per quanto riguarda la politica di immigrazione, il Trattato di Lisboa ha messo sotto il metodo comunitario la politica che riguarda all'interno e anche, ovviamente, a questo dossier, anche non totalmente. Per esempio, il governo spagnolo viene di fare un'azione per quanto riguarda l'immigrazione illegale in qualche territorio che il mio paese ha al nord dell'Africa, che è stato qualificata di illegale. Sono convinto che l'Unione Europea, infine, nel Parlamento o anche la Commissione, sarà capace di dire noi abbiamo almeno una competenza politica per quanto riguarda di mandare chi si è fatto e di dire la nostra. Ma questo è un processo. Questo è ovviamente un processo, ma un processo che è un successo. Questo è il mio messaggio. Non possiamo. Il pericolo adesso, Luciano, non sono gli anti-europei di tutta la vita, eurocettiche di prima ora. No, loro hanno stato sempre così. Il pericolo è quelli pro-europei che hanno diventato pro-europei pessimistici o pro-europei eurocettici, che è una moda politica che ha una ragione reale, in ogni caso bisogna averlo perché non tutto è felice, non siamo in paradiso, che stanno trasmettendo un messaggio assolutamente decadente per quanto riguarda un'Europa che va verso essere un'unione economica, e questo sembra incredibile. Tutto quello che si è fatto dal 1 febbraio 2010 fino adesso per quanto riguarda la crisi finanziaria, la crisi economica, è straordinario. Possiamo immaginare la situazione della Grecia, del Portogallo, dell'Irlanda o anche del mio paese, senza la possibilità di avere l'aiuto organizzato del congiunto dell'Unione Europea, dipendendo solamente dai mercati finanziari, voglio dire, dei speculatori, direttamente sarebbe la morte del nostro sistema sociale, quelli che non è importante per la City o per Wall Street. Grazie.
Federica.
Quickly, the response. Allora, Yugoslavia, I think there is one thing that you say. I think Yugoslavia find its correspective in Libya, as Ambassador Vimont said. Libya, by all means, in the US is seen as a European success. It's true that we didn't have enough bombs, and without the American weapon supply, we couldn't have not made it. And it's also true that at the beginning, the American administration was furious at the French because they started it. But as it ended, they truly see as a success, where the Europeans were able to do exactly what they were not able to do in Yugoslavia, to actually manage their own backyard. And that's also a response in a way to Stefania's question. Yes, I do truly think that if the Europeans are more united and less time consuming for the Americans to negotiate with, the Americans will support it and will deal with it as a main partner. Mind you, the US still see Europe as a main partner. And I completely agree with Ambassador Vimont that Obama is the most pro-European president ever. Now, they are pragmatic. Obama above all. As I said, Cold War is over. They don't need our protection anymore. They are mature. They have their own foreign policy. They expect Europe to be ennobled. They expect Europe to stand up to its own responsibilities. And Europe is only partially doing so. But as I said, in their eyes, we did it in Libya. Actually, I think the glass is seen more full in the US than it is here. I don't think that here we have in Europe, we have the perception that Libya was a European success. While there is widely recognized that it was a European success. So yeah, absolutely, they would. You always have to think that Americans, as I said, are pragmatic. If it's too much time consuming to negotiate with the Europeans, as a whole, then we negotiate in a bilateral way. If it's not time-consuming, we will deal with them. They're progressed into they're projected into the future. And they are aware, Carlos, they're completely aware that the European Union is the most important political experiment and political achievement of the last century. But as I said, they look into the future. They achieved it. Now they expect us to work. Then they expect to be proactive. They are completely aware of the fact that they need us in the rest of the world. But they're also aware that if we don't step up to our responsibilities, then they will do it by themselves. Really, the choice is in our hands. What do we want to do? Do we want to be grown up or not? You know, you mentioned the Civil War. The American Civil War is more complicated than that. The American Civil War is not really it's a leadership. I mean, for tragic as it was, and it was highly tragic, but it's the leadership, and the reading of that is the leadership of the country, which decided that they had to take the risk to have a war, to affirm values in which the Northern leadership believed, and to keep the country united. It's weird to talk as a war as a fact of courage, but it was a fact of courage. Somehow it is comparable to the decision, to the amazing decision of the founding fathers to create the European communities after World War II. It took an incredible bravery to delegate sovereignty for countries which had been fighting for centuries, and namely for half century against each other. And it also took a hell of a bravery for the North to go to war to the South in the US in order to present their country and the values they believed in. So they are, in a way, our founding moments. We get out of the war, they get out of the war in different ways. And they respect it. Only that, as I said, they really expect, Americans are quick, you know, we don't have time to lose on, we don't have time to lose on petty discussion among Europeans. You're on board or you're not. We're able to do it by ourselves. We prefer you to be on board. If you are, good. If you're not, too bad. So it's as Ambassador Vimont said, it's completely into our hands. And, today is the time to act. And I'm afraid to say, a time to act, it means that we have to create a political union, a fiscal union, a more stronger political union. I mean, whether we will do it or not will determine a lot in the future. And I don't really see the courage that our founding fathers or Renzo and Imbeni would have. I don't see that courage. I don't really see in Europe that the leaders understand that they're going to destroy a lot if you don't save the euro, if you don't have a stronger political union. I mean, empires come and go. I mean, we are by all means the best thing of the last century. But, the Romans had a huge empire. The Egyptians had a huge empire. I mean, British, 40 years ago, still perceived themselves as an empire, or as the French. We can disappear. We can disappear. I think we have to understand that. And if we disappear, it's a disaster for everybody, including the US. So it's time to act today. And there, I'm not so optimistic.
Bene, ringrazio i nostri relatori, l'ambasciatore Vimont, Carlos Carnero, Federica Bindi, e ringrazio tutti voi per la pazienza e l'attenzione con cui avete seguito questa sessione, che credo sia stata di grandissimo interesse, grandissimo livello. Lo dico in maniera non propagandistica, ma perché davvero sono rare le occasioni in cui si riesce ad ascoltare e sentire persone con competenza, coinvolte nei processi e con la chiarezza e l'onestà intellettuale che hanno contraddistinto i nostri relatori. Finiamo qua, non so se ci sono comunicazioni da dare, se non immagino che domattina alle 9:30 puntuali, perché i relatori sono anche di più, sempre in questa sala. Buona serata e godetevi Modena. tu, sì, possiamo, vamos a tomar algo, ¿no? Ora, comunico, no, noi andiamo via per un'oretta e mezza.